Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're exploring a topic that, well, it might seem a bit niche at first glance, but as we unpack the data, I think you'll find some surprising connections to, global development, safety. We are diving deep into the global boom curtain market. And if you're picturing like theater curtains, think again, we're talking about these essential barriers, often floating barriers used for all sorts of things.
Yeah, things like containing oil spills, managing marine debris, even marking channels in busy ports.
Exactly. So they're
Well,
pretty critical for environmental safety, safeguarding infrastructure. So if you're curious about, say, infrastructure upgrades, industrial uses, or even transportation safety, well, you'll find this really interesting. We're pulling our insights today from some pretty detailed analysis. It's regional, country level, looking at data from 2021, projecting all the way out to 2033.
right, and it's all based on data from cognitive market research. And our mission here really is to pull out the key nuggets, the important bits from all these numbers, help you spot the trends, understand what's actually driving the growth, and just grasp the bigger picture in this often overlooked but pretty crucial market.
Okay, let's do it. Let's start with that big picture view first.
Yeah.
So the global boom curtain market, it recorded sales revenue of just over $1 billion back in 2021, $1,080 million to be exact. But here's where it gets interesting. It's expected to climb to around $1.4 billion by 2025, and then push further to, wow, almost $2.5 billion, 2,459.86 million by 2033. That's growing at a compound annual growth rate, the CAGR, about 7.1%. I mean, basically, the market's nearly doubling in value over the next decade or so.
Yeah, and what's really fascinating there is just how consistent that growth trajectory looks. It really points to a robust, steady demand. It's not just some fleeting trend. You're seeing this across different sectors globally that use these boom curtains. It suggests, continuous investment in things like environmental protection, industrial safety, maritime infrastructure, all over the world.
Right, a solid foundation. Okay, let's zoom in a bit, starting with North America.
Okay.
This region was a real leader back in 2021. Pulled in roughly $419 million, and it's projected to grow significantly to over $900 million by 2033. That's a CAGR of around 6.6%.
And yeah, within North America, the U.S. is, well, clearly the dominant player. It led with about $275 million in 2021. That's projected to more than double, hitting roughly $562 million by 2033. So just over 6.1% annual growth there.
Okay, 6.1%, but like you said, don't count out the neighbors. Canada is showing a strong contribution too, growing from about $101 million in 2021 up to nearly $230 million by 2033. That's a 7.06% CAGR, so slightly higher than the U.S. And then Mexico. This is really interesting. Mexico's growth is even stronger. It moves from around $44 million to over $109 million. And look at this CGR. Almost 8%, 7.98%.
Yeah, that is noticeably faster than its North American partners.
Right. Why do you think that is?
Well, Mexico's accelerated growth, it could be linked to a few things. Increasing industrialization, maybe. Significant investments in port infrastructure, logistics too, especially given its, strategic trade position. It suggests they're scaling up operations pretty rapidly, operations that need these kinds of safety and containment solutions.
That makes sense. Okay, let's shift gears. Across the Atlantic, Europe, another significant market here, stood about $312 million in 2021, and it's expected to reach over $680 million by 2033. The CGR there is nearly 6.8%, so it's pretty similar to North America overall.
Yeah, but the growth within Europe is actually quite varied when you look closer. You've got the larger markets like the UK. It's projected to grow from around $58 million to over $143 million. That's a strong 7.8% CGR. Germany also showing solid growth, about $52 million up to over $121 million, 7.38% CAGR. And France moving from roughly $37 million to $84 million. That's nearly a 7% CAGR.
So strong numbers there,
Yeah.
but you said it's varied.
Right, because then you look at some other established economies and the growth is slower. Italy, for instance, is around 5.6%, Spain just under 5.2%, Switzerland 5.6%, Luxembourg about 5.2%. So it does raise an interesting question, doesn't it? What factors might be sort of dampening the growth in some of these places compared to others like the UK or Germany?
Yeah, that really speaks to the nuances even within one continent.
Exactly.
Maybe they're just more mature markets. Perhaps the demand is shifting more towards like maintenance and replacement rather than brand new installations.
Could be, or maybe existing regulations are already well established, so the big push has already happened. Lots of possibilities.
Interesting. Okay, but let's talk about the real engine room for global growth here. Asia Pacific. This region is the fastest growing overall, an impressive CGR of 8.3%. It's surging from about $220 million in 2021 to a projected $575 million by 2033.
And within Asia-Pacific, yeah, China is really taking the...
This audio was created with podcastle.ai.
33.
And within Asia-Pacific, yeah, China is really taking the lead role. No surprise there, maybe. Its market goes from about almost $75 million up to over $214 million. That's a really robust 9.1% CAGR.
Wow.
And if you connect that to the bigger picture, I mean, China's growth here just mirrors its huge investments, right? New port facilities, expanded manufacturing, plus they're tightening environmental regulations around their very extensive coastline.
Makes sense. But wait a second, because India looks like a real outlier here.
Sure.
It boasts the highest regional CAGR in the whole report, it looks like, an amazing 10.1%, projected to grow from about $23 million in 2021 to over $74 million by 2033. I mean, okay, it's starting from a smaller base in China, but that growth rate, what's going on there?
Yeah, India's phenomenal growth. Even from that smaller base, it's really indicative of just rapid industrial and infrastructural build-out. You're seeing these major government pushes for, new ports, expanded manufacturing zones, those smart city initiatives.
Right.
And all of that requires significant investment in safety and environmental containment, like boom curtains as they modernize. It really suggests a fundamental, sustainable shift happening there.
Okay, so real transformation underway.
Seems like it. And we also see other significant players in the region, of course. Japan's got a solid 6.6% CAGR. South Korea is strong, too, at just over 8%, 8.08%.
Right.
But then, interestingly, Southeast Asia as a whole shows comparatively slower growth, about 4.7% Pacific region.
Yeah.
So again, lots of diversity even within this high-growth Asia-Pacific region.
Fascinating. Okay, let's move south now to South America. This market is also showing pretty healthy growth. It's moving from about $51 million in 2021 to over $121 million by 2033. That's a CAGR of about 7.5%.
Yeah, and Brazil leads the region there, growing from nearly $24 million to over $55 million, about a 7.25% CAGR.
Okay.
But look at Colombia. Its performance is particularly impressive, showing a strong 9.12% CAGR, growing from just about $4 million to nearly $11.6 million.
Wow, another standout growth rate.
It is. Colombia's growth rate here is really noteworthy. It suggests some specific local drivers might be at play, maybe increasing oil and gas exploration, new infrastructure projects, or perhaps enhanced environmental regs coming online.
Could be a mix of those.
Okay, our deep dive takes us next to the Middle East. This market was valued at about $44 million back in 2021, and it's expected to reach over $108 million by 2033, growing at a solid 7.7% annually.
Right, and Saudi Arabia leads the way there, projected to grow from nearly $17 million to over $43 million. That's an 8.16% CAGR.
Pretty strong.
Yeah, and you also see strong performances from places like Turkey and the UAE. The Middle East's growth, it often ties into those really ambitious, large-scale infrastructure projects they undertake, doesn't it?
Like the new economic zones expanding ports. Exactly. Expanding port capacities for global trade, desalination plants. All these things require robust marine barriers and containment.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, finally, let's touch on Africa, currently the smallest regional market for boom curtains that we're looking at. It grew from about $32.6 million in 2021, projected to hit nearly $70 million by 2033. The CAGR is 6.27%.
Yeah. And within Africa, South Africa is the largest contributor, growing from about $12.3 million to over $27 million, about a 6.6% CAGR there.
Great.
Nigeria, however, shows a comparatively slower CAGR, about 5.2%, which, could indicate maybe a slower pace of relevant industrial or infrastructure development in some areas compared to others on the continent.
Right. So, okay, let's try and pull this all together. To summarize our deep dive then, what we've really seen is, a consistently growing global market overall for these boom curtains, but with some really significant regional variations and some pretty compelling growth stories dotted around the map.
Absolutely. I mean, Asia-Pacific clearly stands out as the key growth engine, with India and China in particular leading that charge, driven by, massive infrastructure development and increasingly environmental concerns.
Right.
And conversely, we saw those areas with potentially slower growth in parts of Europe, which makes you think about the underlying factors like market maturity.
Yeah.
It really hammers home the importance of looking beyond the global number and understanding these country-specific CAGRs, especially if you're making investment decisions or planning strategy in this space.
Definitely.
It's not just about the numbers themselves, but thinking about the why behind them. Is it new infrastructure, industrial expansion, changing safety needs, all of that?
And that's exactly the value we hope you, the listener, have gained from this deep dive today.
Yeah.
Understanding these specific market trends and, yeah, the why behind them can be a real advantage, especially with so much information out there.
Indeed. And it makes you wonder, doesn't it, given these diverse growth rates we've seen, how might, say, future global economic shifts or specific regional development projects we haven't even seen yet, or maybe emerging tech?
Oh, like what kind of tech?
Well, maybe AI-driven environmental monitoring or new material sciences creating better, cheaper boom curtains. How could those influence this market even beyond 2033? What new applications or demands might pop up to drive this market even further? It's clearly a dynamic space evolving with global needs. Lots to think about.
Definitely a provocative thought to end on.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the global boom curtain market. We really encourage you to continue your own exploration of these, surprisingly fascinating trends. Okay, let's unpack this. Boom curtains.
Right.
Probably not something you think about every day,
Yeah.
but, well, they're becoming surprisingly essential.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine these huge, flexible, sound-absorbing walls.
Mm-hmm.
Things you can quickly set up in factories or on building sites.
Or even concert venues. Yeah.
Exactly. That's basically what we're diving into. And what's really interesting is this isn't some tiny static market.
No. I don't know.
We're actually seeing a real surge in how important they are. So maybe for folks new to this, what exactly are boom curtains?
Yeah.
And why the sudden focus?
Well, at their core, they're basically sophisticated acoustic barriers. Really vital pieces for industrial safety.
Okay.
And increasingly for urban development, too. This deep dive, using insights from cognitive market research, is really about exploring the forces behind this impactful market.
So this boom in growth, it's not just a clever pun then.
No, it fits, though, doesn't it?
It does. So what are the main things driving this demand? Especially thinking about industrial noise.
Yeah. Well, a huge catalyst is definitely the growing need for serious industrial noise control.
Right.
You look at industries like...
This audio was created with Podcastle.ai.
Serious industrial noise control.
Right.
You look at industries like mining, heavy manufacturing, construction. They're all facing more pressure.
Pressure to comply with standards.
Exactly. Occupational health standards. There are stricter government rules, industry regulations about noise exposure.
So they're not just suggestions anymore.
No, they're pretty much non-negotiable for worker safety. And boom curtains are, a direct solution for that.
And it's moving beyond just the factory floor.
Yeah.
Right. You mentioned urban development. As cities grow.
Oh, absolutely. That's a massive factor. Think about all the big infrastructure projects, the constant building.
Creates a lot of noise.
A lot of noise. So boom curtains become crucial for developers. They need them to meet those strict zoning noise limits.
To protect the nearby communities.
Precisely. Keep the disruption down. They provide that essential sound buffer.
Yeah. That brings up something interesting. It feels like this is shifting beyond just sort of avoiding penalties.
Mm-hmm.
We are seeing a bigger focus now, aren't we? Employers thinking more about worker comfort, maybe even productivity.
That's a really key insight.
So what does that actually mean for the person, on the ground working there?
It means their day-to-day work life gets tangibly better. Employers aren't just investing for compliance now.
Okay.
They see the value in a healthier, less stressful place to work. A quieter environment, well, it directly leads to better morale.
More focus.
Better focus, definitely. And it even helps with retaining staff. So it's become a strategic investment in their people.
Okay, so the growth is clear. The benefits seem pretty solid. But like any market heating up like this, I imagine there are bumps in the road.
Oh, for sure. It's not all straightforward.
What are the main sort of hurdles that boom curtain adoption is facing?
Well, this raises that important question, doesn't it? Balancing the long-term gain against the immediate costs.
The price tag.
That's a big one. Yeah, the high costs of the really advanced systems. We're talking specialized acoustic foams, fire retardant materials.
Premium stuff.
Exactly, that drives the price up. And then you've got the installation. It can be complex, often needs customization.
Especially for weirdly shaped spaces.
Right, irregularly shaped facilities make it trickier. It's definitely not just an off-the-shelf purchase.
That makes sense. Does that high cost then become a barrier for, say, smaller companies? Or are maybe simpler options appearing?
It can be, yes. While there are different tiers, that upfront cost is certainly a hurdle for some.
And I guess awareness isn't universal yet either.
Yeah.
Especially maybe in developing economies.
You hit on a key point there, yes, where noise regulations aren't as strict, or maybe acoustic health just isn't as high a priority.
Adoption is slower.
Adoption is slower, yeah. And then there's the environment they work in. Dust, moisture, heavy vibrations.
Tough conditions.
Very tough. And that can reduce how effective they are over time, which means more maintenance, higher replacement costs down the line.
So it's not just the initial price, it's the whole life cycle cost.
Exactly. The ongoing operational aspect really matters too.
Okay, that paints a clear picture of the challenges.
Yeah.
But looking forward, given all these needs in tech, where's the innovation heading? What's exciting on the horizon for boom curtains?
Well, this is where it gets really interesting, actually. What's fascinating is seeing how these, seemingly simple curtains are becoming quite high-tech.
Oh, so.
We're seeing a big trend towards modularity. Systems you can integrate with movable partitions.
Ah, so more flexibility.
Much more flexibility. Factories, event venues,
Yeah.
they can reconfigure their spaces easily while still keeping that precise acoustic control.
And are they showing up in new places too?
Definitely. They're getting adopted more in commercial settings. Think film studios, theaters, conference halls.
For temporary sound blocking.
Exactly. Temporary sound isolation without needing to build permanent walls. It's very versatile.
And I bet sustainability is part of the conversation now too.
Absolutely. Huge focus on developing eco-friendly, recyclable materials that still offer really robust insulation.
Makes sense.
And on the tech side, things are getting quite sophisticated. Digital acoustic mapping, for instance.
Mapping the sound.
Yeah, using things like 3D acoustic modeling to really tailor the system to the exact acoustics of a specific space.
Oh.
Maximizes efficiency, gets better results. It's a real leap from just basic barriers to precision-engineered acoustic environments.
It really is incredible how something so specific, like a boom curtain, ends up touching everything from safety regulations to city planning, even worker happiness. It's kind of a quiet revolution, isn't it? Literally shaping our sound environment without us always noticing.
It really is. And if you zoom out a bit, think about just how pervasive noise pollution is becoming in general.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
And so it makes you wonder what other sort of hidden solutions like this might be quietly changing our daily lives, and how much more deeply will acoustic control be integrated into design in the future? Not just curtains, but everything.
That is a really interesting thought to leave everyone with. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive today.
This audio was created with Podcastle.ai.